Holy Toledo, sports fans. Hello, you beautiful monkeys, your boy Kadukun, and it's been a minute since I've talked about the manga, the Kenshin manga known as Monster Remake. I did a video some time ago talking about the first volume when all of the hype was going on, and I actually read it through and through, and I gave my genuine feelings about the manga, and I talked about that the manga had a lot of potential. The art was awesome, the action was great, but I had some small little gripes that felt like it needed to be improved. But of course, not everything needs to end in sourness, because obviously he's been working real hard and trying to get more volumes out, and recently volume 3 is about to be coming out, but I didn't do a video about talking about volume 2 because I've been very busy. And recently I was able to actually sit down and read volume 2, and I wanted to talk about my genuine feelings about how I felt about it. And oh my sweet baby lord, bro. Kenshin and all the writers of this manga have really been cooking, bro. There has been a significant improvement from volume 1 to volume 2. I don't know truthfully where to pinpoint exactly where it starts, but there has been massive improvements to the storytelling, the dialogue, and the art as well. The story seems to flow so much more seamless as each character feels like they're going through a natural thing. But before I go into inner major depth, let me actually talk about the synopsis of what happens into volume 2. So volume 2 obviously is happening after the events of volume 1, and this one is more of like a tournament arc. You get an introduction to all of the other hounds in the facility on New Eden, and they all have to go through some basic training to show how much their skills have improved over time. And we run into Jabari actually having a major internal struggle, trying to figure out where he stands with the hounds, or trying to actually figure out how he wants to save his family, because there's been a lot of increase in leaker activity throughout the story. We get a tad bit more depths about the frustration Jabari feels about living this double life, and he can't go out and just talk to his family to figure out what's going on and what he should do next, and essentially is just accepting his fate that he is a part of this system, and he just has to find an opening for him to break through. But at this moment in time, he's just going through the motions. Now the motions in this case is him going through the training games, where he fights against other hounds while they test their skills and their abilities, and you get a little bit more information on how the power system of this world works. So you get individual capabilities, all the suits and improvements, and you get a massive fight with a bunch of different characters. You get introduced to a bunch of side characters in this volume. And at the very end, we get the solidification of Jabari's rivalry throughout this series. You got your Naruto and Sasuke, your Goku and Vegeta, and in Monster Remake, we got Jabari and Fane Cliff Tower. Dude, I have to say this every single time. I get major Tokyo Ghoul vibes when I read this manga, but it just does it different enough to where I'm still intrigued. In the very beginning of the manga, you get a very essence of what happened, the general backstory of the Eternal Night. You get the actual sequence of what it looked like when that event triggered. Hundreds of people just caught lacking one day with a massive hole in the sky just spawns and sucks in hundreds of people, and people lost their life because of this massive spur of event, and nobody really fully understands what happened except for some of the characters we see in that beginning portions of the chapter. Now I'm not gonna talk about entirely what my speculations is because I don't fully recognize the character as of yet, but I'm very intrigued of what's gonna happen next because I want to know more about the backstory of why this event occurred. Because the events we see that occurred in the very first chapter had happened years before the events that we see now with our current main characters. But from that alone, I truly am interested to see how much more they're going to build upon this backstory, because they gave you just enough to keep you intrigued or make you want to ask questions, and how it connects to the overarching system that we have now. But then that only happens really in the first chapter or 2 chapters, I believe. And then not too long after, we get deep into the tournament arc of this manga, bro. Basically at this point, we get deeper into the problems that Jabari is having internally. He is having difficulty fighting against lurkers, especially when he learned that they used to be originally human people. And he's having this major difficulty fighting against them because he feels the empathy of trying not to kill actual human beings. And of course, day by day, he's trying to question everything about this organization, New Eden, Sonata, everything about that, just so he can get some answers to why he's here in the first place. Because at this moment in time, he still has no more information that he had compared to the first volume. But he's called in by the Madam Dean and the coach, and they have to go through this major testing period called the testing game, or the training games more accurately, where they have to go and test their strengths against other characters, where they have to use their abilities or their tunings to actually play a game of dodgeball essentially. It was more of like hot potato. But before I go deeper about how the game goes, I want to talk about a character that really stuck out to me. My boy Wraith. This guy right here was one of the survivors from the first volume who survived the attack of a lurker that attacked his team. And unfortunately, the remaining team members he had all got killed and he was the only survivor. And he gives off this feel of anger, this desperation for solving, this revenge arc kind of character. I love these characters who have these vendettas because when you learn about his power and what he's able to do, it matches his character so much that I'm like, what the heck is this? Because his power is so cool and it matches his actual aesthetic as a character, which I love so much. I love it so much. And I also love the fact that he's a default vengeful character. He wants to avenge the friends that he's lost, and he's willing to do whatever he can to do that. And I want to see how they do that in later on. Like maybe he might turn a villain and actually go against the characters, or he might be redeemed at a later point. Either way, I'm looking forward to his plot lines so much. But now we're moving on to the actual tournament arc itself, where everyone is fighting each other, and this is using an instrument to basically explain the power system. So it's basically an exposition moment, so it's a little bit info dumpy, I will admit it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not too bad. But I'm gonna say this power system is so cool and it's so fun. It reminds me so much of a power system. One of my favorite power systems to ever exist in all of anime is World Trigger. So let me break down and glaze the power system a little bit. So how the power system works, everyone has their own affinities known as tunings. Everyone has their own, I guess, side effect, their own thing, kind of like an elemental ability that you have. Jabari's is sound. Now with these tunings, there are tuning types. Kind of pulling off a little bit of a Hunter x Hunter, but you know I'm gonna let it slide. It's alright. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It happens. It's fine. So those tuning types are transistor, where they give the user the power conduct and amplify certain types of waves and energy. Augmenter, or give the user unique physical enhancements. Cerebral gives the user unique cognitive abilities. And elemental give the user command over natural elements. And anomaly give the user over a very unique and unnatural ability or force. For example, our main boy Jabari, you would think he would be an elemental because of sound. But in reality, he's a transistor because it's an amplification of sound and waves. And since sound is in waves, obviously he's a transistor. But then there's the characters like September, who uses manipulation of nature, which makes her an elemental. And everyone has their own forms and unique ways of using those abilities. But my all-time favorite up to this point, like I said before, is my boy Wraith. So his tuning is known as Seance. It allows the user to contact and summon the dead. So he can actually contact spirits and actually communicate with them, and also it's also connected to the objects that he uses. So in the fight that he has with one of the main characters, Han Anderson, whose tuning is technology mind you, he decides in the middle of the fight to sacrifice a picture that hold all of the images of his fallen comrades with them having a fun time, like one of those carnival strip pictures. He sacrifices it and summons the spirits of his fallen comrades to fight against him. What level of lunacy? And at the same time, he's trying to mess with him mentally because Han may have some responsibility for the reasons why his teammates were dead. At least that's how Wraith sees it. And to make his power even cooler, he has his own possession known as the Scythe. And in the fight with Han, he was able to actually sacrifice it, or in essence breaking it, summoning his own soul. And because of him doing that, he was able to defeat Han with a massive explosion. Now, I'm not entirely sure how his tuning works. I believe you are able to actually use the spirits in some form of attack or something. I'm not sure if they're physical objects that you actually can interact with. But before I can bring up one of his more stronger forms later on, I have to talk about the drawback of people's tunings. In their tunings, there's something known as overtuning, when basically if you use that ability way too much, you basically lose control of that ability, making you lose all sense of self. where instead of your power just simply deactivating, your power just kind of just rages on and starts taking a form of its own. That's why one of my favorite forms that I've seen so far is that Wraith when he was overtuning with his fight with September, because he had to fight September after he beat Han. But the only way I can actually understand of how this works, essentially the soul that he has upon himself where he's overtuning basically possessed him, and he was able to actually take on an aggressive form where his physical strength and abilities were just amplified, and his own teammates, Team Gamma, had to jump in to actually stop him from fighting. And I'm like, there's no way that this is insane. This is beyond insane, bro. But that's enough glazing of Wraith. There's actually so much more understanding of how these works, because you actually get to see how some of these different tunings work. Prime example, the character Tilly has a cerebral tuning type where she has spatial precision, where she's basically like Hawkeye. She has ultimate precision for all of her attacks with her weapons. And another example of a cool character is Ren, who also is an elemental who can manipulate air. But beyond all that, everyone has their fights and they've got their cool moments, and you get a little bit more deeper understanding of how the power system works. And you also get an explanation on how the suits complement the tunings of each character. The suits are supplementary for each character who are using their tunings because it helps protect them and heal them if they were ever to take damage. While at the same time, the suit helps maintain some stability for the character while they're using their tunings, meaning it lowers the possibility of them overtuning. And if a character happens to overtune, you can see a supplemental cause being that the suit's battery dropped down to 0 and the nanite supply got dropped down to 0 as well. I love this power system because you can see all of the creative ways of each character using their powers, especially when you see one of the final fights of the volume with Jabari versus Fane. So Fane uses the ability to control radiation, meaning he's also the same kind of type as Jabari. The dude is a walking radiation man. There's a character in DC that has a similar ability, but he puts it on to a whole nother level. Basically, he has like ionizing blast, he's able to shoot radiation to people like Kamehameha blast, and he has just a default radiation factor, meaning like in his fight with him and Jabari, because after all the matches went through, they were the final fight. And one of the advices that was given to Jabari is do not get touched by this man because you will slowly burn alive. I do want to say I really do love Jabari and Fane's relationship because it reminds me of a Peter Parker and a Flash Thompson kind of relationship. So I do really like this overhyped, this hype man type of character. Fane is like this angry default loudmouth character that, you know, has all of the angst, all of the actual gusto of being a captain, and he can still back up with all of his abilities and to a degree where he feels like his team is needed. So he's not some just massive dumb butthead or meathead of a character. He actually can back up with abilities, but he's super dickheady. He's very dickheady, he's very arrogant, he's very mean for no reason, and he's very much of like the massive school bully type. But either way, they have been gunning for each other since volume 1, so this fight has already been in the books since the very beginning, so I was looking forward to it. I just didn't expect it to be this soon. And in this fight, it's so sick. Because up to this point, Jabari using his sound abilities, he's been using it like sound blasts, but now he actually uses it to amplify his movement. He's able to use it like a quick flash step, run around, because he's using the sound emitting from his feet to just jump really fast, really far. But also, Fane can actually use that same ability with his radiation. Clearly, I feel like this guy is inspired by Goku or some form of Dragon Ball character because his moveset is just basically Dragon Ball Ki Blast. But one of the best moments of this fight is this frame right here. Do you see this frame? That dude right there that looks like a massive skeleton is Fane. His power literally turned him into a literal walking Fallout character. He literally became the living embodiment of Fallout itself when his power started to overtune. And he does this awesome final attack, I believe is like a knee drop into the arena, destroying everything around him, making him seem like one of the most strongest characters in the entire verse at that moment in time. I don't know if he actually is, but it just feels like he is a massive threat to deal with in the first place. Because in that major fight, even though after he does the knee drop, Jabari is not having any of it. Because keep in mind, he's still having this internal struggle throughout the entirety of the matches. He does not want to really do any fights, and he doesn't feel any fulfillment. They won the matches and they actually completed the training, but he's saying like, what does this have to do with anything? This doesn't solve the problem, doesn't change the fact that we're all held captive by this organization, and we all need to do something about it to make our lives better and get back to our families to save them, or do whatever we need to do to save ourselves from this situation. And of course, the coach who's involved with everything as well doesn't want him to keep yapping, so he tells Fane to hold him down, stop him. And that's when they go full out, nose to the wall, slugfest of a fight. And Jabari eventually, he's not backing down, he's having his main character moment. But the fight gets cut short because my boy Liam, my Sasuke archetype, I know he's probably not based off of Sasuke, but he gives me the Sasuke archetype. My boy Liam came out of the fieldwork because throughout the majority of the volume, he's been going through something. It's not been explained, but he has some form of backstory that's probably going to reveal in the next couple chapters. Probably in volume 3, we'll find out. And clearly, he's in an emotional state. He's not having a good time at this moment in time. But as Jabari is getting his butt handed to him, he's getting belt to ass the entire interaction, his captain taps in and he says, you know what, it's enough of this, I gotta get my hands dirty too. And the captain's trying to say, bro, are you sure we don't gotta do this? And they said, bro, nah, put the stage back on here, I need to let off some steam. And we see this frame right here with my boy Liam about to face off with Fane, and I'm like, yo, this is gonna be sick. And of course the volume ends there. I am hooked. And I love the fact that you can see all of the character flaws of each character as these matches are going through. September is still too caring about certain characters, so while even sometimes in matches she can get her guard taken down because she cares about a character too much, because she doesn't want his PC people hurt unnecessarily, which is completely fair. Also with the character Allison. Allison is very angry, very hyper fixated on proving herself and her strength. So anytime she's in a fight, she feels like she has to put everything on the line and be as ruthless as possible, which unfortunately makes her more prone to overtune and gas herself out at the end of the fight and becoming a liability later on. Han, same thing, is actually having problems with blaming himself with events that are happening. He's super over analytical. He loves technology and depends on technology, but he can only apply that factors to technology because technology doesn't have feelings. So when certain situations arise and he has to make life-altering decisions, he kind of freezes up and then he overanalyzes and blames himself a little bit too harshly, making him a lot more liability in some forms of the planning sectors. And you can see a lot of the flaws of so many characters and what's happening to them, and it's so interesting because I want to see how all of these characters interact with each other. Now, I've been glazing the story really hard up to this point, and trust me, I've been really loving it, but obviously there's some points of concern I actually want to make point as well. Now, one of the only issues I have is dialogue wise. Dialogue is not the worst. Obviously it's improved greatly since the first volume, and I'm actually glad that they've moved away a little bit from the modernistic dialogue that they've had, but even though it's still there, I'm not telling them to not use it, but I'm just a little bit of a stickler when it comes to that. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you know what, it's cool, whatever it is. The only issue I have is the amount of characters that was introduced at the very beginning. We went from a 4 to 5 main cast group with Jabari, September, Alicent, Han, and Liam to a massive increase to the amount of characters that's involved. Now, I can understand some ways it can work because I did grow up with Naruto, so I can understand it doesn't always become a major problem because the characters are kind of like supplementary to the main characters. So I'm hoping they go that path. But I hope they don't do too much where the characters are connected to too many people and the plot feels like you have to know about side characters to know what's going on. For example, there is a character that is actually crucial as well, or is affected by the deaths of those characters that were killed in Volume 1. But I don't fully remember the main character's name off the top of my head at this moment in time, but I know that character's face. And I did not remember that character in Volume 1, personally. Now, yeah, it could just be a fault of my own. Maybe I gotta reread it to make sure I can understand it properly. But this is a moment of concern for me. Not a big one. I just want to see how they do things first. Because obviously, I think I need to read up to like 5 volumes. When they get up to the 5th volume, where I feel like they have at least a solid arc going on, that's when I can actually make a proper understanding of like, okay, how much do I like this? How much do I think the story is going to be thriving? Because one thing for sure, mainly for me to know for sure if I really love this, is how the story develops. So far, the story is developing pretty nicely. I'm getting bits and pieces about the Eternal Night, how it's affecting the real world, why certain things exist. And I'm like, okay, cool. pieces are there. Now I just need to see them slowly come together a lot better, so to see how much I love the story at the end of the day. But other than that, I really loved Volume 2. I am actually looking forward to it. I've already bought my Volume 3. I bought it ages ago, so I'm waiting for that to come into the mail. And once I get the physical copy, because I don't like reading digitally, I really don't. Like, it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't feel as good to read it digitally. So I'm waiting for it to actually get in the mail, and I'm going to have it in my hands. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to do another video breaking down Volume 3. I was going to do each chapter, but then I'm like, I feel like that's a little bit too much. But you know what? I'm fine with it whatever way. You guys let me know if you actually prefer that. Do you prefer if I do each chapter, or do I do volumes? Because either way, I'm fine with it, because I get to break down the entirety of the series anyways. But yeah, I am so much happier with what's going on in the story right now. I want to see so much more. I can't wait for Volume 3. I can't wait for Volume 5. I want to see Volume 5, so where everything is starting to connect. I want to see it. And they have so much potential to make the story go in so many different directions, so I'm waiting for it to become in fruition. I can't wait for that entirely. And I'm so proud of my boy Corey. I'm not the biggest Corey fan, I will say this before, and I'm not trying to do this in a biased standpoint. He actually is making a really good story, or a team of writers making a really good story. So you guys should really check this manga out. Give it a good read. Take your time with it. You get free chapters on the website. Go look at that, bro. Take a look at the first few chapters. Those were always really good. And honestly, bro, I can't wait to see how these characters go, and I can't wait to see these powers progress. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe and like to the channel if you want more videos like this. Let me know who your favorite character is in Monster We Make right now, because right now Wraith is at the very top with some of them on the little bit bottom. And I would actually love to have a deeper conversation of why you guys like this manga, or why you dislike the manga, because I actually want to see everyone's viewpoints about this manga. And I want to do videos like this where I'm breaking down, having fun, reviewing different comics or mangas from different people, especially if they're indie. I'm actually going to do another video later on in the week, or maybe next week, talking about some comics I bought months ago, earlier in the year, or I believe last year, and I promised I was going to make a video, talking about their comic, and I completely forgot. So I'm going to read about those, because those are actually some really good comics as well. But yeah, that's about it. It's your boy Kadukun. Hope you beautiful monkeys have been having a great day, and peace.
FMA, handle business, don't play. On point when it comes to the anime. Jack and Daxter, ayy, let's go. The ultimate heroes, don't stop, we on the road. Kadukun.